So tell us about the courts in the state of Ohio.
All right, so you start out in the trial court, and Ohio has a lot of different types of trial courts, and they hear all kinds of different cases, from criminal cases to various types of civil cases, things like divorces, custody. And these are the courts where when people think of a court, they watch television, this is what they think of. Oftentimes there's a jury, there's evidence that's presented, and there's one judge that presides over the cases, and then a decision is made. Either the jury comes back with a verdict, the judge makes a decision, and if a party doesn't like it, because somebody's going to lose, they can appeal that to a court of appeals in Ohio.
So there are 12 different courts of appeals in Ohio. In Hamilton County, it's the First District Court of Appeals. It's very different from a trial court. First of all, there is no jury. Secondly, there's no additional evidence. So every case decided at the Court of Appeals is decided on the record. What the judges do, instead of having a jury, there are 3 judges on a panel. So the party has to convince 2 out of the 3 judges to go their way on a case. And the judges will look at the evidence in the case, at the record, and look at the law and decide whether to affirm, to modify, or to reverse the trial court. And then if the party doesn't like that decision, they can attempt to get it into the Supreme Court of Ohio.
But that's really easier said than done because the Supreme Court accepts very few cases. It's a court of what's called discretionary jurisdiction, which means it doesn't have to hear a case that you appeal to it. And as a practical matter, it only hears about 2 to 4% of the cases that are appealed to it each year. And that really shows the importance of the appellate courts because, for instance, the First District here in Hamilton County is effectively the Supreme Court for Hamilton County because so few cases get up to the Ohio Supreme Court.
Good, very good.
That was really good.
Yep.
Really, they do
So
it 5
3
times.
times is the jump. There are, well, the way I have it worded here, let's just sort of think this through. So we want to talk about the Court of Appeals.
See from their judicial system.
I think fundamentally it's having the confidence and knowledge that the court is treating the case as the most important case anywhere in the country to those individuals. I've represented all types of clients over the years, and that's their common way of looking at litigation. They believe their case is the most important. And so if a court doesn't treat it that way, they're going to be disappointed no matter what. And so ultimately, that's what we want from a court is knowing that it is rolling up its sleeves to do the work, to treat the parties fairly, and to get to the right answer.
And the way that you know that a court is doing that, first of all, you want to have rules for the court that are going to allow you to be able to fully brief your case, fully argue your case, and not limit you in any way. Another thing is that you want your judges to be prepared and knowledgeable about the subject matter. And you want to feel as a litigant that the court is not just a rubber stamp, that the court is actually going to put in the work and the research, listen to both sides, and come to a fair decision.
And then at the back end, when the court renders a decision, it's really important that the parties are able to understand why it is that they won or lost. Because the only way to ensure that the public knows and the parties know that the court is being fair is if the court explains the decision so that regular people can understand. It's important that every person who leaves the court feels like they had a fair shot. That sounded really dumb.
We're gonna do it a few more times.
Good.
That's good. We've hit before, Ginger, kind of on, trust in the institution is kind of
Yeah.
the thing
Yeah.
we've hit. So bring that up of how can, we need to make sure that people believe in the institution
Yeah.
of the courts and without a, descriptive and a real,
Yeah.
fleshed out reason of why they came to their decision, people question, right, how the decision was come to.
Mhm.
So something like that. That was good. I'm gonna remove myself a little bit so you guys don't look back and forth.
Okay.
You just look straight in.
But I like the way you're addressing each of these topics. So.
Yep. I was sort of hoping to hear well-documented results, maybe. I don't know if that's a good word or not, but all right, we are rolling.
All right. So based upon your guys' experiences within the judicial system, what are the things that people want to see from their courts?
I think fundamentally they want to know that the court has treated their case as if it is truly important. Because I've represented a number of clients over the years, and they believe every case I'm handling for them is the most important case anywhere in the country. And so if the court doesn't treat it that way, they're going to be disappointed, and they're going to come away from that experience not believing in our institution and in our judiciary.
And the way people and litigants understand that a court is going to treat their case with the utmost respect is if you appear in front of judges that you can tell have taken the time to understand your issue. If the judges have done the research and they're asking the right questions at oral argument, if the court has rules that allow you to fully brief your case and they don't give you some obscure page limits or limits on what you're allowed to do, and that you know that the court's not going to be a rubber stamp, that when you get up in front of the court, win or lose, you know that the judges have worked really hard to come to the best decision that they could.
And also, in order for the public to have trust in our courts, they have to know what's going on in the courts. So the courts should be open for people to come in and actually see cases, but also specific to decisions. Specific to decisions, these need to be well reasoned and well thought out, well documented why the court came to the decision that it did, so that everybody who leaves the court feels like they had a fair shot, even if they lost.
Ginger, run through it one more time. If you stutter through one of your answers, just
Okay. I'm trying to think of what Candace said at the very end.
That not just a rubber stamp, that the
Like you're well documented, well thought. When you get those wells going together, that you had a nice cadence in there.
And the way that the public is going to have trust in the judiciary is if the public knows what's going on. And there are a few ways to do that. The public should be able to come in and should be able to hear what happens at a court, but also specific to the decisions themselves, these decisions need to be well documented. They need to be well reasoned. They need to tell exactly why the court came to the decision that it did, so that when the party leaves the court, that party can feel that even if they lost, at least they had a fair shot.
Very good. Very good. Yep.
it's good. I think we have it.
Excellent.
Those two or three.
sorry
Yeah.
guys.
No, it's okay.
Well, and
We were
the bottom line is,
ready.
we're gonna be able to pull between these,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
don't worry about that. It
All right.
doesn't have to be the best for all three of you at the same time.
Okay. Ask the question again.
What is the question?
Qualities of a good
Oh,
judge.
yeah. There are many qualities that make up a good judge, but what is the first one that comes to your mind of the one quality that every judge needs to have?
Work ethic. It is so important that judges are the public servants that they are supposed to be. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of work, particularly for an appellate judge, because they spend their days researching and reading and writing rather than working with the public and actually seeing parties. So an appellate court judge, and I am just rambling, I need to start over. I don't like this answer. Okay.
I would, and I think for all of us on this one, I think we just keep it shorter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's,
If we go to like, then you turn into me.
Right.
So just
Yeah, shoot for like 15 to 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
Yeah,
get it.
All right.
2 sentences, 3.
you're a
maybe.
public
Yeah.
servant.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then just be done with it.
Okay.
So there are many qualities that go into being a good judge. When you think of a judge, what is a quality that jumps out of you right away?
Work ethic. Judges are supposed to be public servants. It takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline it takes a lot of work and a lot of discipline for judges to be the public servants that they are supposed to be.
Can we do that one more time? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was
problem.
doing a camera move at the same time.
No
so-
problem. Okay. Work ethic. Judges are public servants. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort and commitment in order for judges to be the public servants that they are supposed to be fair and impartial.
but in order to do that, the judges need to be both qualified and experienced. They need to know the court to which they are seeking office, to understand how it works, to understand how it fits in the overall system of justice, and to be willing to be open to making changes when necessary.
Judges also need to be independent and impartial, and they need to rise above politics and be able to feel comfortable making decisions that sometimes are unpopular, sometimes are not going to sit well with everybody, but might be the right decision to make under the law.
Very good. I like it.
One more time. Pierre, put your.
Okay.
So there are many qualities that go into being a good judge. When you
Wait, before you do that, for Pierre's part, since we're specifically running for the appellate court,
there's obviously a lot of qualities that go into being a good judge. When you think of the judge that you want to become, what is the first quality that jumps out at you?
work ethic. Judges are supposed to be public servants. And in order to be a good public servants, judges have to be committed, they have to be disciplined so that they can put in the work that it requires to be a fair judge.
But the judges also need to be qualified and experienced in appellate matters. So they understand how the court works, they understand how it functions, and they understand what the court's role is in the overall system of justice, because that's the only way that you can ultimately find ways to improve the system in order to help encourage people's trust and confidence. That didn't sound good. That's the only way that you can understand how to fix the system or fix problems within the system when you see them.
And independence and impartiality are extremely important. Everyone that appears in front of a judge needs to be treated the same, no matter their background, their political connections. And judges need to rise above politics. And when they are making decisions, they need to be able to feel confident in making decisions, even if they're unpopular, as long as that's the right thing to do under the law.
Good.
One more time.
A room full of probably 200 high school kids listening to this court case, and so many of them were actually affected by this issue in some way, because one of them was talking about how she didn't have her mom's name and she lived with her mom and she didn't even know her dad, and then another one was talking about how hard it was to have a different last name. So I guess my point here is it was really cool that there were so many high school kids who were engaged by watching, but could actually see how the court's decision affected their lives. So it's kind of cool.
Well, the first district used to do that. I mean, we had an argument back when I first started. I didn't argue, I wrote the brief at Xavier. I mean, they used to do court in various locations.
Should have started
I think
to do that a
that's
little bit.
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
yeah.
Ginger, so there's a point you can make at the end of the court shouldn't just take something like the status quo. It should be doing more to get out there and show people what the institution is, show what's going on, so people are more confident. Believe in the courts more. They understand them more of what's going on. They know the process that exists as part of our democratic system, right? Something like that. All right. I don't want to script it more than that because I want you guys kind of go off the cuff, so you're actually speaking like you just were. Jim, you ready?
Rolling.
All right.
All right.
So what more can we do for transparency or access or whatever the question is going to be?
So what's been really interesting to me on the campaign trail is talking to a lot of very politically savvy people who vote in every election, but tell me, sometimes kind of embarrassed, that they often don't vote for judges because they just don't know who to vote for. And having as many judicial races up this year as we do, and every race is contested, so we have a lot of candidates going around the community, we are having a really good time educating people about our court system, especially the mystery court, which is the Court of Appeals.
But it can't end there. It has to be an ongoing process to get people interested and engaged in the judiciary, and to continue that education process, getting out into the community, both when you're campaigning, but also after the campaign is done, and to talk about these issues, to let people know, to answer their questions so that they understand the court. Because ultimately there is a huge drop off for the voting for judges, and that's the only way to cure that, is to make people understand the court, to let them know how important it is, and to have that discussion with them. And like Candace said, I've really enjoyed having that dialogue with voters all across the county so far.
I was gonna say something like that.
She's speechless.
Well,
Why don't you
What
just
about-
why don't you just go ahead and go like pretend I didn't say anything and then you just
Oh no, that's okay.
or
No,
what about getting to know their judges?
yeah,
because
I will talk about that.
because
Yes.
that's what I really like about
Yes.
what Judge Triggs has been doing.
Yeah,
That people are getting to know who, because they don't meet judges
Right.
usually, let alone.
And I think we can use, don't say it's from the focus group, right? But one thing we heard in there was like, I've lived in Cincinnati for
Right.
20 years. I've never met a judicial candidate.
actually, I have a specific example about
Yes.
that. I do. Okay, I was at an event maybe in May, and a man there told me that before this campaign season, he had never met a judicial candidate. And what's funny about that is that was maybe the 5th or 6th time I had met that particular man. So we are really getting out there and trying to meet people and educate people about who the judicial candidates are and about the judicial system as a whole. And it really has been a lot of fun because many people have never met judicial candidates before.
Good.
Yeah. I guess we'll do one more time through it.
Yeah.
Great judge. What is a quality that jumps out at you right away?
Work ethic. Judges are supposed to be public servants, and part of being a public servant and serving our community is having the commitment and the discipline to put in the work to make sure that the decisions are fair.
But judges also need to be qualified and experienced and have an understanding for appellate practice, which is for an appellate court. And ultimately, if you have that experience and that understanding, you will be able to not only do a good job, but also to find the problems in the system and work to fix them.
Judges also need to be impartial and independent. So with impartiality, they have to treat everyone that appears in front of them the same. Doesn't matter if you've got lots of money or a lot of political connections, everyone is equal under the eyes of the law. And with regard to independence, judges have to rise above politics. They have to be able to make the tough decisions that maybe are not politically popular, but are the right thing to do under the law.
I think that was very well done.
That is it right there.
What do I do?
Jim, what do you think? I mean, you're the most unbiased perspective.
I think, actually, I like that last chunk. I think because people are so generally uneducated, particularly when it comes to judicial candidates,
Right.
that you gotta keep this stuff very big and broad.
Yeah.
I mean, I can expand it. There's lawyers that aren't
Sure.
Right.
litigators that don't pay attention, because if they're not in court,
Yeah.
they don't know.
Yeah.
So I want to do it one more time. The one thing that I'm cognizant of